I'm just trying this out today, really. Here I am in Reading, just checking my hair in my beautiful practice rooms. This is where I teach in Reading. It's a little space, and I was hoping that some other teachers would join me today, but it's early days to start up the Reading massive Alexander Tate Teachers Group. Such a buzzword. Anyway, I've long wanted to try live streaming about the Alexander technique. I'm always with technical problems. On the last stream I tried a Bluetooth microphone. My wonderful Chris isn't here on technical support today, so I'm just trying this one with the camera audio to see how it cuts through. So you may hear a bus going past or something. It's quite a busy road here on Castle Street. Good coffee shop next door, by the way, if you want to pop by. I was just talking in the last video about Thich Nhat Hanh and the similarities between what he talks about, peace of mind, and Buddhism, and he's great at making Zen Buddhism come to life in Western language. And talking of Buddhists who devoted themselves to teaching us Westerners, today is the birthday of our dear friend Chime Rinpoche. Happy birthday, Chime. I think he's gone underground, he's offline again. But Chime, and I hope it's not disrespectful to call him Chimmy, but he always said, call me Chimmy, rhymes with Jimmy. He came to the West over 50 years ago with two other monks, fled from Tibet, and he westernized himself, and he taught people like David Bowie and my parents. So he has a devoted following of students, and I remember seeing one of his videos about meditation, and he said basically, we all think too much. We always think, oh, I'm going to meditate, but should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? And do I do this or do I do that? And he basically said, you've just got to sit down and do it. And to me, I've always been a bit of a meditation rebel. So I don't like meditating. I've always had a very busy mind. But during my Alexander technique training, I realized that for me, the Alexander technique is a meditation. I really don't like this bit of hay. See, I'm distracted. So the Alexander technique is about changing the way we react to a stimulus in our life, which could be a thought or a feeling or an illness or a physical stimulus, or anything really, anything that makes us react in a particular way. For instance, it's cold. Habitually, you're going to wrap yourself up, or someone says something mean to you. Habitually, you're going to protect yourself or lash out. And some people get the idea that if you react to these things, then that's harmful. It's not that you shouldn't react. We're all going to react because we're all human. Everybody reacts to stimulus, to stimuli. It's not whether you react or not, it's the way in which you react to stimulus. Before my training, and a lot of people on my training were people pleasers, and I say that in the nicest possible terms. A lot of us had parents that we were very worried about. We were people, we'd come in with our problems, and we all wanted to make it right and fix each other. And that, of course, is why we were training to be Alexander technique teachers. We wanted to help people all the time and fix them. And probably in my work as a social worker or in charity work, I always wanted to fix people. Well, guess what? You can't fix people. You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed or not ready to be fixed. All you can do is to fix yourself. Physician, heal thyself. So it's right there in the Bible. Again, I'm not a religious type person, but there's a lot of common sense sprinkled around along these books and stuff. So the first thing we learn on Alexander Technique teacher training is how to fix ourselves. We spend 3 years fixing ourselves. It's like if you train to be a psychotherapist, you spend a lot of time psychotherapizing in your own self-therapy. Because if I was to go and work on somebody in an Alexander Technique lesson, paying customer, paying punter comes to me, and I go in and I try and fix them, and I'm not fixed, and I'm not using myself to the best way I possibly can, then all I'm going to do is bring my bad habits onto that person. And the likelihood is that that will give them a whole horrible bunch of stimuli, and they'll clam up or anything like that. Hi Kunihiko. And it's not going to have the desired effect. So the idea is that if I myself, and I go into every lesson, even if I'm not feeling tip-top, my teacher the other day said, all you have to do is feel slightly more up than your pupil. So if I go in and think, okay, well, I've got all my training behind me, I'm likely to be slightly better than the person who wants to ask for my help. I go in, I'm feeling more up. The idea is that I just take somebody up with me physically. So I put my hands on them. They could come in like all slouched and feeling rubbish. Put my hands on over the course of a lesson. We come up together. I don't go down and try and pull them up by their socks. I work on just lifting the lid off the the spring, whatever, the catch on the jack in the box, and we come together because I'm slightly more up than they are. So for me that really resonates, and that's why if you really get into the Alexander Technique, you do often end up, a lot of people do training as a teacher because you think this stuff is amazing, where can I go from here? And the answer is that you can do a teacher training course and submerge yourself in it for 3 years. And you realise that the best possible way of being any use to anybody is to be completely selfish. It's amazing. You can think about nobody but yourself and keep checking your reactions. So then you start noticing, oh, that's funny how I react when such and such happens, or I feel this or do that, or when somebody says that, I react really badly. And you learn slowly, bit by bit, to not react that way. And then as you smooth those things over, and you choose to react a different way, or a better way, or a more efficient way, you become better. You stop burdening yourself, and you stop bogging down in, let's face it, other people's stuff. And you can bring everybody up with you. So ideally, we work one-to-one with somebody. If you can afford the time and the lesson fee, I advise you to go and find a teacher, because everybody is so different. You can have somebody who's very sunk down and very kind of tired and heavy, or you can have somebody who's overextended the other way and tense and, very reactive. And we all need different ways of looking at things. We all understand different language. Somebody might be very medical in their terminology. I can talk about muscles and skeletons and nerves and bones and things like that. And somebody else might be very visual or metaphorical in their speech, so I can talk about fountains and balloons and mooring ropes and things like that. So one-on-one is a good way to work with a teacher. And you can try different teachers, because again, teachers are all very different. Some teachers work in silence. They just use their hands backwards and forwards in the chair. Big hands. Other people talk a lot. Some teachers now, since the pandemic, are very keen about teaching online, which is a reality we have to face. As you can tell, the reason I'm sitting here talking to you is because people find it difficult to turn up, because life, gets in the way. Maybe it is that we talk over the airwaves, because the work is ultimately about changing your thinking. So it is possible to teach somebody a little bit. If they've already come for lessons, say, or they already know something about the technique, you can teach them online. But the idea of teaching physically is that we train our hands as teachers to listen through. So if I put my hands on somebody, I can feel things going on in them. Feel like if they're tense, you can just feel a heaviness. If you lift an arm, you can feel when they're not letting go of their arm. If they are letting go of their arm, it feels nice and kind of heavy, the weight of an arm. But if they're lifting it themselves, just different. You can tell a lot through the use of your hands. It's a subject of great debate in the Alexander Technique world. So here we are. I'm talking to you online. I don't think. So I can teach online, I can teach in person. Ultimately, it's about changing your thinking. So even if we were to read this book about reconnecting the mind and the body, the idea of the mind and body as one thing, psychophysical unity, we call it in the technique world, is the same as the Buddhist idea of the falling away of the idea of the mind and the body as two separate things, which is really important because we are on this planet, we are inhabiting flesh and blood, and we communicate through our mouths, through our faces, beings, through our movements, and we take in information through our beings, we take in through our senses, through our ears, eyes, nose, mouth, information and communication. And so if we look at these things, then we'll be looking after ourselves, our whole selves, our minds and our bodies. After you're dead, I don't know what happens then. Nobody really knows. But while on this planet, inhabiting a body, flesh and bone, then it's one unit going around and talking and walking. I'm getting quite esoteric now, but I think what I wanted to say in celebration of our good friend Chime's birthday today, he keeps threatening to leave us again because he feels his work here is done. I don't know when he'll actually ascend again, but it's knowing him, and I think he would agree. It doesn't really matter what language you use, whether it's the language of Buddhism or the language of, faith healing or the language of yoga or the whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as it gets results. It's got to speak to you. Your language has got to speak to you, if that makes sense. Which is why I like Alexander Technique. It's practic. FM Alexander discovered all these things, psychophysical unity, and how the use of oneself affects the functioning of the organs, and the functioning of the organs affects how you use yourselves. He discovered all that for himself because there was no one around to tell him. And then slowly he verified it with doctors and other people, and he found that these ideals that he'd detected exist in other disciplines. So again, it doesn't matter. Just pick the language that suits you and follow it. And if you're finding peace and quiet and good health and good mental health through what you're doing, then it's the right language. If you're struggling with one language, drop it and find another language. I could rabbit on for days. If anybody's watching, do say hi. Anyway, so the second test of the Space Alexander Technique YouTube live stream, I'd like to do some more live streaming. I've got some ideas on who to talk to, other teachers maybe, other students, other pupils. And hi Sam, thanks for watching. And I think it's nice just sitting here and talking. While I'm waiting for people to commit to a bunch of lessons, hard, but it still is the best way to work. Then I might as well sit here and talk to you, isn't that right? So as you go about your day, think about your breathing every now and again. Just notice it. Notice what it's doing. If something gets on your nerves, whatever it is, just stop. If you find yourself getting overwhelmed, just stop. Stop. Say out loud, stop if you can, if you need to. Stop, 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 stop. Whatever you're doing, stop. And then think about it. Just think about it. Take a moment. Switch that moment into whatever just happened and whatever you were about to do in reaction. And then just say, there's a better way. Wait for it to happen. Obviously, if you're driving or in the middle of the pavement, then you need to be aware of where you are. That's my disclaimer. There's a story about F.M. Alexander, who was, he had a pig. I think he kept some pigs. He had a lovely place in Surrey, in Kingston, I think it was. Somebody came in to London one day and told him that someone had left the gate open and that the pigs had escaped. And apparently he shot out of his chair and went after the pigs. He didn't stop and inhibit and direct and then leave his chair. So when there's an emergency, you'll go, basically. But not everything is an emergency. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes we think that, somebody says jump, and then we jump. Or somebody says, I need this done right now, and then we go, I must do it right now. I mean, obviously, if it's a matter of death, then you do it. But most things aren't. Most things can wait a minute. And if you can put a moment in between the thing happening, the thing that asks you to do something, and you doing something about it, then your reaction, consequently, will be a lot calmer, a lot more carefully considered, and a lot more effective, and ultimately a lot less detrimental to what you're doing. So that's my advice for the day. If you have any questions about any of this rambling waffle, then do drop me a line. I've got a website, spacealexandertechnique.com. You can find me on Facebook, anything. Let's have a conversation. You don't have to come for lessons, but let's have a conversation, because I do like talking about this stuff, as you can tell. And like I said, I'm still working out the audio as well, and probably I sound like I have Smith's disease as the video skips ahead and misses syllables now and again, but that's live streaming for you, can't be helped. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and keep breathing. Bye.